Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the dinner table. I'm so glad to have you all here. And I'm also so glad to have my longtime friend, Tim Tate, with me to here today. And Tim wants to get us started with the introduction today. So, Tim, get us going.
Okay, so this introduction, this is how I start counseling sessions with clients. So
Okay.
this is their homework at the end of a first session, and then after that, this is how we begin and end every session
Okay.
with a breathing space.
Let's
And
do
it's
it.
an introduction to mindfulness. So the way we're going to do this
Hmm.
is we want to have both feet flat on the ground so that we're grounded.
Okay.
We want to be sitting up tall so that we're connected.
All right.
We want to have our hands on our lap, one on each knee, so that we're balanced. And then we're going to take 3 deep breaths, but we're going to breathe in a particular way. We're going to breathe in through our nose for 4 seconds, and we're going to hold that breath for 4 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out through our mouth for up to 8 seconds.
Okay.
So kind of a 4 plus 4 equals 8. But
Okay.
I'll talk us through it, so just listen to the sound of my voice.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm
Any
ready.
questions?
Yep. Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, here we go. Okay, so we're grounded, connected, balanced. Take a deep breath in through your nose, taking about 4 seconds to do so. Hold that breath for 4 seconds. Then breathe out through your mouth for up to 8 seconds as best you can. Breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out through your mouth for up to 8 seconds. Nice and easy. Breathe in through your nose. Hold for 4 seconds. Relax your shoulders and breathe out through your mouth for up to 8 seconds. And open your eyes. So how was that?
Very good. It's always good to be reminded to breathe and to get in my space, in my body space again. Yeah.
Exactly. And another reason, or I was going to explain the reason why we breathe out twice as long as we breathe in.
Hmm.
What we were talking about earlier, we were talking about fight or flight.
Yeah.
And if you're being chased by a wild animal or
Hmm.
you're in a burning building, of course, your fight or flight would kick in, your sympathetic nervous system would be activated. But when that happens,
Hmm.
um, all of the energy leaves the parts of our body that don't really need it at that time so that
Right.
you can either fight or flight your
Uh-huh.
way out of that situation. So your energy goes to like your hands and your feet, your
Mhm.
extremities.
Mhm.
That's why people can get like sweaty palms or their feet start to tap. They feel like they need to get up and move around, right?
Yes.
So that's where
Uh-huh.
your energy is to get you out of that situation. But a lot of times, well, most of the time, we're not being chased by a wild animal. We're not in a burning building. We're just thinking of a situation, maybe something at work or
Uh-huh.
something at home that turns on our sympathetic nervous system and we're in fight or flight,
Yes.
and the energy leaves our digestion, so our digestion shuts down because we don't need energy, we don't
Uh-huh.
need to be digesting food, we just need to get out of that situation. So a lot of times when that happens, our stomach can start to feel like something's wrong, like
Yeah.
we feel like stomach ache, or
Yeah.
it's hard to swallow because all of that's part of your digestive tract.
Uh-huh.
That
That's
doesn't mean
exactly what happens whenever I'm feeling like nervous about something. I feel a pain inside my stomach and in my throat and yeah.
So a lot of times people think, okay, not only am I anxious,
Uh-huh.
right? But now I've got a stomach situation on top of
Uh-huh.
it. Like there's something even more wrong with me. But actually, that means that there's something right with you,
Uh-huh.
because that's what happens when your body is in self-defense mode. It's out to
Mhm.
protect you. So all of that is supposed to happen. So
Communication tool, our body.
it's
Yeah.
listen to your body, but you can
Mhm.
also tell your body there is no threat,
Mhm.
because when you breathe out
Mhm.
twice as long as you breathe in, that tells your body everything is okay, because you wouldn't be able to do that if you were being chased by a wild animal or in a burning building.
Okay. So you're suggesting like when you're feeling maybe something that's making you feel nervous or worrisome that this is a good way to remind yourself, I mean, do it it sounds like you're doing it at other times too with your clients, but
Potentially, it's definitely something to do when you find yourself activated, but it's something that we don't want to wait and do. We practice so that when we need it, we just kind of like switch into it.
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
practice it, you can just get right into it. So it just makes it easier to do that.
So that's one of the things I should have been better at or will be better at, as I go up to do some kind of a speech or go to talk to somebody, when you're feeling that when you make a phone call, an important phone call,
Uh-huh.
like right before you dial the number,
Yeah.
do something like that.
So if I'm preparing for a public speaking thing, and I'm practicing and I can feel myself start to get worked up
Uh-huh.
because I'm starting to think of, all these
Everything.
people,
Yeah.
right? And what they think about me.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what that is, but I
You
can
can
make up
create
some
all
stuff.
kinds of
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
So
Me
what I
too.
like to do is when I feel myself getting anxious and I know where it is, it's usually about right here on my
Uh-huh.
chest.
Uh-huh.
I usually like tap that on my chest right there and say, you know what? Thank you
Uh-huh.
for
For helping
being there,
me.
but I
Yeah.
don't need you right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I've been really focused a lot on body communication lately, and it's been a thing that I have all my life learned about, but it's been brought to my attention more regularly with the Course in Miracles stuff I do, and then also a friend of mine asking me the other day specifically, how does your body feel about this thing? And
Hmm.
like reminding me, oh yes, that's what I need to be aware of what my
Hmm.
body's telling me. And so it's got me communicating with more people about like, what is your body actually saying to you right now in this
Right.
moment?
Right.
But we have to be willing to be aware enough. We have to take time. I do Qigong every morning
That's fantastic.
because it teaches you to be aware of your body
Mhm,
from bottom to top, the
mhm,
breath work,
mhm.
all of that. And it's actually teaching you A, move energy through your body, B, spend 10 minutes in your morning before you even move on with your day, paying attention to your body.
Sure.
I also have an interesting question. When I take a deep breath, I have a hard time taking a deep breath in. Like I've found that I actually don't know how to take a deep breath in. And sometimes in Qigong, they'll tell you like breathe into your belly.
Mhm,
Like I don't know how to breathe into my belly.
mhm.
And then when somebody asks me to breathe for 4 seconds, like breathe in for 4 seconds, I can't, I almost can't do it. Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, it could be, um, trauma.
Interesting.
It's just hard to get that deep breath because 'cause you're always like your breath is up here.
Yeah.
It's shallow
It's
breathing
shallow. Yeah.
because how we feel, our emotions affect how we breathe.
Uh huh.
So, if you change your breathing, if you regulate your breathing, that can in turn regulate your emotions.
Yeah.
So if you just keep focused on your breathing
Practice
and
on it.
practicing and
Hmm.
slowing it down and taking a little bit deeper over time, that can change.
Well, I'll tell you that that's a new discovery.
Mhm,
I've discovered a lot of things at
mhm.
age 44,
Yeah.
but that's a new discovery. It's like, I don't know how to breathe. How did that happen?
Oh, it's like, and for a lot of people, it's cutting edge, the things to do, and they've been doing this on the other side of the planet for thousands of years. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, learning a lot of things about my body, and then you were talking about our guts being affected by this, and a lot of the changes that have occurred to me in the recent months have been about flipping my gut health because my mental health wasn't doing well. And so it's really good to have that introduction to get started into this podcast. I think we're going to have a lot of good stuff to talk about, but I want to talk about something you and I've spent a lot of time talking about in the recent days, is about the autoimmune protocol diet. But
Mhm.
specifically, I just traveled to College Station this past weekend. I mentioned last week that my son graduated from college. He got his
Fantastic.
master's in finance,
Well
and
done.
amazing kid. I'm so proud of
Well
him.
done, mom.
Yeah. Oh, it's strange because it's like it's almost like people have to convince me to like be like take some credit for it because I don't feel any, he's so capable on his own and he's so focused. But at the same time, I birthed that kid
Yeah.
premature when I was 20 years old, and that's the kid that came out of it all, and he's a very, very good,
So he came
intelligent,
from
smart,
somewhere, and
love,
this is where he came from.
love.
So,
I will
yeah.
tell you, I remember all the way back to the moment that kid, that I could talk to that kid and that he could talk back to me, that I would tell him, I don't care what you do. And this was his whole life. I don't care what you do. Just be kind. Just be
Mm,
kind. That was like the number one most important thing.
yep.
And that kid is kind.
Wonderful.
But in addition to that, he figured, I don't know. So I do want to take credit, but I also don't want to, I don't know how to take credit for it. I don't know
Yeah.
how to, but so traveling to College Station, I've had a lot of questions for people asking me about how do you travel when you're dealing with the autoimmune protocol diet,
Yeah.
and when you're having this super strict diet, and it's a bit challenging. I went through Louisiana at the beginning of this, and I didn't stick with the diet completely. I am in the reintroduction phase of it now, so I'm adding things back in. So I was less like super duper concerned about, well, if they put black pepper on something, I just tried not to panic about it. And I didn't have any stomach issues. I don't recall having any major headaches or anything like that. I don't recall any symptoms that would make me think I ran into anything particularly of a problem. But I also did stick very closely with the diet. We went through on the way up to College Station, kind of took like a little bit of a detour and went to this place called Vincek's barbecue, which
Hmm.
I know there's like a central part of Texas. Do you
Hmm.
eat barbecue?
I do on occasion.
Yeah, I'm on occasion as
Yeah.
well. I don't eat meat out at restaurants most of the time unless they're very specific restaurants, but this particular time I was like, "Okay, I'm going for it."
Yeah.
And Vinchecks, and this barbecue was amazing. Like, did you ever eat Joe Cotton's barbecue?
Of course.
Ugh, this was like Joe Cotton style.
Yeah.
That
Right on.
reminded me of that. It was this amazingly delicious brisket. And then I also got the pork ribs, which was the thing at Joe Cotton's, the majorly delicious pork ribs. So those were excellent. But I go into this place and it's a lunch hour on a Friday, and it's full of people eating fried catfish and giant plates of, all the macaroni and cheese and potato salad and just lots of meat and stuff like that. The one complaint I would say is that they didn't have just a salad, like a green salad,
Yeah.
right? So then that made me think, okay, well, when I travel, I have to get prepared for that. So I bring myself an ice chest. So I had made myself some tzatziki sauce that's all that you can meet the diet autoimmune protocol because you use coconut yogurt. And I've been talking about that every week, but that's a recipe I would definitely want you to have
What
on
does that
hand.
sauce go on?
It's cucumber, dill, coconut yogurt, olive oil, lemon juice, and you basically just blend it up in your food chopper.
Okay.
And then I eat it with the Siete brand chips. The Siete brand
Okay.
chips are made with
All
cassava,
right.
and so you can eat that. So it's a snack, right?
Okay.
And so I have this snack that I just pulled out with my barbecue. So I didn't have a salad, but I had this fresh. So that's one of the things I did. And then in addition to that, I went ahead and took my thing of coconut yogurt with me and my Tupperware of all the berries that I like to eat. So I had that fresh. I also had gone ahead and made my smoothies that I make, blended those all up and kept those. So I had a small ice chest, and then I had a bag of dried snacks, and I eat like mangoes, and I use Thrive. Have you ever heard of Thrive
No.
before? It's an online ordering system,
Okay.
and they are very particular about making it to where you can go through the list and you can pick out. So like if you have a special diet, if you're gluten free, you put
Hmm.
gluten free and all the products that they have. So AIP is one of the things you can choose.
Okay.
So they'll give you all of the list of
Right.
whatever. And if you only eat grass fed, they only sell grass fed meat or wild caught fish or whatever. But some of the companies actually have dried meats that I can eat. And so I have, like some meat sticks with me, and I've got some chips that I can eat. I learned the other day that Siete brand makes a sweet chip, like the sugary sweet.
Hmm.
You would think that you couldn't eat that, but it actually has coconut sugar on it. And so it's a treat that you can have. So I had my bag of like dried road
Can you eat
snacks.
like beef jerky? Is that
I can eat beef jerky as long you have to double check all the
the
ingredients because
ingredients? Yeah.
oftentimes it has black pepper
Extra.
and then it'll have like nitrates and nitrites. They're
Yeah.
not doing that stuff
Yeah.
right, and none of that stuff I can have. So,
So how do you have the simple that you can only have like 4 or 5 ingredients and you have to be able to pronounce all of them? How do you do that? How do you decide?
well, first of all, I studied the AIP like
Okay.
program
Yeah.
very closely, but then in addition to that, pretty much that's and if I don't know what it is, then I definitely can't eat it right now.
Right.
I'm loving this diet. Like it is making me a better person, just all across the board.
Yeah.
Everything about it. Just my mind is clearer, my health is better. I feel empowered to talk to people about it. People are coming to me and asking me questions about it. I go out to travel and I go eat with a group of people, and I'm not compelled to have a glass of alcohol.
Yeah.
It's helping me with my budget. It's like
I bet.
it's hugely interesting to go through that whole process and then go to, a Cajun restaurant where this is like a full scale typical American, whatever, and I can only eat a pretty basic salad and a sweet potato, and so I have to stay out of those types of restaurants. But if I go over to a place where, like they've got some barbecue, okay, I'm going to eat that. And then I'm just going to have my own little stuff here on the side. And then there's a restaurant in College Station that we always go to. It's actually in Bryan. It's Ronin, and it's a farm to table restaurant. Go to it almost every single time we're up there, and I had from them this last time a salmon dish that was really good. And if you go to restaurants like this, and this is part of the reason why there's that this side of it, eating out is not going to be on your budget for autoimmune protocol. Like, I can give you a really tight budget
Hmm.
for eating at home, but going out to eat dinner, really the only restaurants that are going to serve you are the restaurants that are extremely expensive restaurants. And
Oh
the
yeah.
reason is because the chefs will actually help you out. You can talk to the chefs, you can explain, and plus they're also usually using meat that is the kind of meat that you would be willing to eat. And so I got a really good piece of salmon, and I haven't ordered salmon in
Oh,
ages
that's
from a
my
restaurant.
favorite.
That's one thing I don't. The salmon skin
No, I
was
can't do that.
so good. You don't eat that?
No.
It was so good. It was
Yeah,
like crispy and buttery, and it wasn't buttery, but it tasted kind of like that. Like, it was really good.
I'll take your word for it.
You're you're like, not today, not
So
today.
we talked earlier about eat this, not that. In the case of alcohol, what's the drink this, not that?
I use Topo Chico. Topo
Perfect.
Chico is
My
my
favorite.
everything
Yep.
everywhere I go, and
Yep.
almost any place. In Texas, I learned in Louisiana they didn't know what Topo Chico was, but I could get bubble sodas and things like that. But
I'm sure they know since Coca-Cola bought it, they know what it is.
I guess now, but I mean
Yeah.
that was in February, and they didn't know what I was
Still,
talking about. They didn't
wow.
know what I was talking about. And then the other thing is that if I go to certain bars, like if I go to the Post and my friend Michael Green is there, he's one of the bartenders, he will make me a drink that fits my dietary stuff. And he uses honey, and he uses basil, and he
Wow.
makes bubbly water and ginger juice or whatever. So he'll make me a special drink. So it's one of those kind of things. Like, if you know your chefs and if you know your bartenders in
Yep.
town, you can get anything you want. And if you're
Yep.
not afraid to ask for what you want, which is part of the reason why I want to I'm doing that class on Tuesday, May the 30th,
Mhm.
because these are the kinds of things I want to teach people, right? I want to show people you can have what you want,
Yeah.
and you can manage it in a budget, but you're not going to be able to go out and like have those kinds of drinks all the time,
Yeah.
and nor would you really want to. I mean, that's like um not just having so much consumption of stuff all the time.
Well, it
Just
sounds like
limit
if
it.
if you wanna be a better version of you, you need to eat better versions of something or drink better versions of something.
Yeah, just make better
Better
choices.
choices. It all
Yeah.
comes down to choice.
So tonight we got to have together, we made the Nomato sauce, which I've talked about here on the podcast before. But I was really curious to see what you thought about it. And
So good.
you liked it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think in like comparable to a meat bolognese kind of spaghetti sauce of other kinds?
Well, it tasted just like anything else that I've ever had that's, tomato. I mean, it totally taste if you would've told me there was no tomato or
You
not had
probably
told
wouldn't
me,
have
I would have
known.
known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I was always a little bit turned off on with like marinara sauces is they always seem to be a little bit sweet, right?
Uh-huh.
And I actually think that one is
It
sweet
was
because,
sweet. Yeah.
yeah, it was sweet. It was also super red tonight,
Yeah.
like redder than I've ever seen it
Yeah.
before. I used the beets from my garden and my carrots from my own
Yeah.
garden. So that was really cool to have that full. And then, of course, the wild pork we used as well from it.
It was almost as red as your hair.
Yeah. That was fun. So it had, an onion from my garden, olive oil, garlic, carrots, a little bit of red wine that we used the red wine
Mm.
from the farm, and then, beef broth. I actually used some, beef stock, the actual like good stuff. I used that. I had some of that from Natural Grocers, and then ground pork, like I mentioned, and then the beets. Now it called for canned beets, but I actually had cooked my own beets, and then it also called for a butternut squash puree. And when you went over to the store, you couldn't. They didn't have it at
No.
HEB.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I had already, yeah, I got it, that
The
one
fresh
from
one,
the
right.
fresh one came from Natural Grocers.
And I think that in the past, that's what Joe was always doing was he was making it he was making a fresh one in the Instant Pot. I just didn't realize that.
Okay.
And then we were trying to kind of in a hurry and I could just tell that, and so but you went and looked and you couldn't find that. I bet they have a can of puree at the Natural Grocers too.
Okay.
I bet they
Yeah.
do. But I thought it was interesting that then we so instead of having anything canned in it this time,
Yeah.
everything in it was fresh. And I used the Instant Pot to make it, and it took 11 minutes, 8 minutes, plus I added 3 more minutes on to it, and, it was super simple, just put your butternut squash in there. You helped me split it in half because I wasn't gonna be able to get that thing in half.
I almost diced myself
I'm
on the
so glad you
first.
didn't. Yes. I'm so glad because getting over here took you like, you had to go a
Oh, it was
whole loop
great. Yeah.
around.
Yeah. As I was pulling up to the bridge or going through downtown, uptown, I could see cars stopped leading up to the bridge. And I thought, no way.
Yeah.
What's going on? And then I looked at the map and it said it was going to take like an hour to
Yeah,
get
when you
here.
told me that, I was like, "An hour? That doesn't where is he?"
We're like, oh,
But
this
then
is,
when you had
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
So there was a little bit of, like, the start was kind of rough,
It was
to get here.
It was a beautiful evening. The weather was perfect. Everything is nice and green. It was very scenic. It was very. I don't think I even listened to anything. It was just nice and quiet the
You
whole
just
way.
needed a
Yeah. Yep.
nice long
It was
drive.
perfect.
And then I also on the side of that, of course, I always chop up, like, some watermelon or some other kind of fruit. I put that on the side, and then I made us a cucumber, onion, basil vinegar salad. I actually did go ahead and put tomatoes in yours, tomatoes out of my
Hmm.
garden because I now have tomatoes coming out of my garden. So it was really nice to share that meal with you.
It
I
was.
That's my favorite part of the
Thank
week.
you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah, and then we got to just hang out in the kitchen and, like, catch up on everything
I
and
know.
all of our
Always something to catch up on.
lots. You and I can talk
I know.
2 hours straight without stopping even one breath.
Yep.
Are you like that with everybody, or am
Not
I one of those
everybody.
people?
There's a few people. Well, when you talk to people all day, you're limited in the people you talk to after. So yeah, you're one of the few that I can just go on and on.
I find that I've heard recently as I begin meeting a lot more new people that people are very like, "I can't believe we've been talking for 2 hours straight." And I'm like, "Oh, I we could talk all day." I'm one
Hmm.
of those kind of people that could talk all day. Today, while I was out working outside, I actually had a new friend that had come to help me out with doing stuff around the farm, and we needed to do a bunch of weed eating and mowing and stuff like that because of course all the rain that we've gotten, and then also just because that's been a chore that hasn't been getting done recently because of some of the changes. And so I was out there with the push mower, cleaning the edges, and he was using a walk behind weed eater to really get tight on the edges and get things cleaned up. And then my dad will come around with a big ZTR, big giant lawnmower, and mow the stuff so that it gets all nice and cleaned up. But the grass is kind of wet and the grass was kind of tall. So the lawnmower would get kind of jammed up
Hmm.
and I would have to deal with it. Right. And so I'd have to let it. And a thought rushed through my mind of the blade
Hmm.
on my leg
Hmm.
because I had that accident with a lawnmower, riding lawnmower when I was 13,
Hmm.
and a lawnmower tried to cut my foot and a huge portion of my leg off, but my leg and my foot were both saved. But I have that trauma in
Uh-huh.
my life.
Uh-huh.
And in that moment today, I had this rush of memory, but then I had this rush of peace.
Uh-huh.
And then I had this rush of strength and resiliency that
Mhm.
all came over my body. Speaking of body
Mhm.
communicating, I felt it all. And it just made me think about like how do you go from that and then basically thinking to yourself, I'm never going to do anything outside. I probably won't be able to have the kind of career where I would stand on my feet, where I would
Mhm.
have to work hard
Mhm.
because of this accident that's happened to me, to being where I am right now, where this isn't the first time I've had to deal with a lot of lawnmowers and machines, but the learning garden, I had to run the lawnmowers, I had to run the weed eaters, I had to deal with like issues with blades on lawnmowers and all kinds of things like that. I clearly work very hard. I mean, I worked for 6 hours straight today, out, and it doesn't bother me to work like that. So I clearly work hard. So the ability to do the work with
Mhm.
the accident, that's not a thing. So it just got me really thinking about this idea of trauma, processing things, processing the fears that we face, how some people just shut down, and then
Mhm.
how some people push through and move through. And you and I have spent a lot of time talking about anxiety.
Well, it sounds, I mean, how I process things, mindfulness, just paying attention, of course, to how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and then what I'm doing, or maybe what I have, maybe what I did that is affecting that, and then of course, how can I think and do something different to change the way that I feel. But it sounds like what you're talking about, what you're experiencing, is post traumatic growth,
Yeah.
PTG.
Uh-huh. Well,
Right?
good.
Yeah, well, because it's really good because a lot of people who have been given that diagnosis, or I guess, anytime someone's given a diagnosis that ends with disorder, you
Mhm.
think that that's just gonna follow you around the rest of your life, but
Mhm.
not necessarily. Post-traumatic growth is when you learn to integrate
Mhm.
that something that maybe you discovered about yourself that you didn't know that you had in you, that got you through that situation, that you can actually use to apply to get through other situations in
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
successfully.
Yeah.
So that's growth.
Well, and right now, everyone knows I'm dealing with a big moment of grief, a big
Mhm.
life-changing moment, and
Mhm.
having to process a lot
Mhm.
of anxiety, and so this is coming to me in a big way. And finding and having moments like that, I have this sense, and I've been saying it recently to more people more confidently. I feel 100% called by God to assist in witnessing healing.
Mhm.
Like, you can heal yourself, that kind of
100%.
witness. And that I've been through all of these experiences that, the best I can say, they were either all connected directly with that incident, and or also connected with just some of the anxiety, like from my parents, from my mother,
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
my birth, from some of those experiences. So I got to this point in life right now where I actually feel like a different person. Like, if someone asks me now, do you have anxiety? I don't have the same feeling as I did 5 months ago. No, I actually don't feel anxious. I have a different, normally in the past, I would have been panicking and feeling manic
Mhm.
and trying to cook dinner and making a mess and just, whatever. And instead, what I did was I said, when you get here, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Take this other route.
Yeah.
And then I started cooking the meal, knowing that I needed to get us further along in the meal. And then all of a sudden you were at the gate and I was like, yay.
Yeah.
And it just, everything about it felt differently.
You've experienced transformation. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're here on earth to do at some point, is go through transformation. And it's usually not easy. And it's usually started with something that we probably wouldn't have
Wanted to
wanted.
go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there are those that believe that we said yes to this. So
Yeah.
if we said yes to this, we can do this. So something is better on the other side, and it's a different version of us.
I told somebody today when we were out harvesting the figs from the fig tree, and he was telling me a story about this cactus that he has that blooms at night and how it just has this beautiful fragrance. And I said to him, when something like that happens, and it was kind of the same thing when, like, the lawnmower, when I was underneath the lawnmower and I was like digging around underneath there, and when something like that happens to me, my sense is I want to share what
Mhm.
I'm experiencing. And what's interesting about that is, in the past, I would have thought that that was kind of a narcissistic, egoic, like, I need to tell the world what I'm doing. No, what I've heard myself say today is, I want to give you what I'm
Mhm.
experiencing.
Mhm.
That's a giver.
Yeah.
And that's, wow.
Well, so we potentially call that vicarious PTG, vicarious post traumatic growth. So there's like vicarious trauma, where you could be hearing a story, something that someone experienced, and it's just so unbearable or
It
unimaginable.
physically
It
hurts
it
when,
fix
yes,
it you feel trauma
yes,
from that, right?
yes.
So that's vicarious trauma.
Uh-huh,
On the other side again, the vicarious growth, when someone experiences that transformation,
uh-huh.
they treat themselves better. They get to the other side of that. That can affect the other person, other people, in a good way, in a healing way.
That perfectly leads to the next thing that I was curious about with you, and that is that I fully believe that I have this empathic nature, this highly sensitive. So the idea of creating the boundaries, that's one of the things that a lot of people have been presenting to me as something to like think about more of is putting up your boundaries, putting your bubbles around you,
Mhm.
and it's because both of those things you listed, I vicariously feel both of them. If
Right on.
someone's telling me a horrible story, I can
Mhm.
and my gut starts to
Mhm.
hurt and I physically tense up and whatever. But on the alternative, if someone's telling me a like joyful story, I'm just like, I'm like a heart, it wants to explode to
Yep.
feel that. And so
Yep.
now I'm fully aware of that feeling. But then also, I think that I didn't understand it necessarily before. And so I haven't learned how to protect myself
Mhm.
and put boundaries
Mhm.
up. Do you deal with that kind of stuff?
Well, basically, well, I do
Uh-huh.
personally because I'm an HSP, a highly sensitive person,
Uh-huh.
which just
Okay.
means we're sensitive to sounds and
Yes.
temperatures and smells.
But that used to always feel like an anxiety, and now it's like it's a gift. Like it feels differently to me now than it used
Well, if you
to.
take care of it, it can be beneficial, and that might just be your body saying, "Take care of me," and that's just good to listen to your body. But for an HSP, and we're not trying to change it. We need more sensitive people in this world. So we just take care of it. So it's just self-care. But if you're empath, that
Mhm.
means you could be sensitive to other people's energy,
Uh-huh.
right? So what an empath wants to do is that self-care
Mhm.
practice, but to like a protection level. It's like essential.
Okay, so explain that. What would be some ways that you would do that? What are some self-care techniques?
Grounding,
Okay, well,
100%
I do that every day all
grounding. I
day.
mean, do yeah, just and that's the first step, no pun intended. And the breathing space is to feel the ground
Mhm.
beneath your feet.
Mhm.
Because if you feel the ground beneath your feet, you can't get carried away by someone else's stuff,
Yeah.
if that
Okay.
makes sense. So if
Yeah.
someone's coming
Uh-huh.
at you with something
Uh-huh.
and you know it's going to be this kind of thing,
Uh-huh.
back and forth, you just ground yourself and that pulls the energy down, so that will bring down the other person's
Uh-huh.
energy as well,
Uh-huh.
if that makes sense.
In some of the religious worlds, they talk about, the washing your hands, but not like literally washing your hands, but like rubbing your hands together.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's so funny because a lot of times people have also been talking about like just pressure into your palm of your hand,
Hmm.
like just push some pressure so that you can feel something in your body
Right.
and you can reconnect with your
Right.
body again.
That's kind of like a grounding
Uh-huh.
technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that gives you a sense of outside of whatever's happening that might be affecting you. You can just get back to reality and
Mhm.
just whatever you feel and sense in your body. So
Mhm.
yeah, however you do that, do that.
A lot of people will tell me things like put a bubble around you. Like
Imagine,
I don't know
yeah,
why that for some
protection.
reason I've never clicked into that. Grounding, yes, that makes perfect sense to me, but I don't know that I've ever been able to click into putting a bubble around
Because
me.
I just think if you're more focused on that, more aware of that, you're not going to let anything in.
Yeah.
It's self-protection, and you're just more aware. It just gives you something to be more aware of, like something tangible, even though that's not really tangible. But it feels like if you feel like you have something to do, it's probably going to work. So it's just giving yourself something to do.
It's giving myself something to do
Yeah,
is the way I
that
am in
sounds
life.
protective to you. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that I find myself doing is saying, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" And then hearing the voice of God that says, "You don't do anything. Get up and go wash the dishes. Get
Right,
up and go do the
right.
laundry. Get up,
You're
just
okay.
go. You're fine. Just go
You're
do
okay.
what you need to
You're
do
okay.
right now." And then magically, it's not magic, but magically, like the solution to the problem just pops into my brain. Like,
Because if we're in states of fight or flight,
hmm
we're in like survival mode.
right?
They say clever thinking goes out the window. So that's not the time to like make big decisions when you're in anger or anxiety, right? They say
Yeah,
don't make big decisions. You want to calm yourself down because then you're thinking clearer
yeah.
about things. I also want to mention experts in my field, counseling psychology, have been saying that we should have been calming people down during the pandemic,
Right.
because not only does your
Yeah.
digestion system stop working, but so does your immune system
Right.
and your ability to heal.
Yeah.
So instead of like, freaking people out, they should have
Right.
been calming people down, because that could have contributed to a lot of people getting sick.
Right, right. You and I did a webcast, and I only did about 6 episodes of it. But I was so adamant. I called it Voices for
Yeah,
Wellness.
we were trying to help.
I was so
We
adamant that
knew people
no
needed help.
one
Yeah,
was talking
I
about what
know.
actually needed to be talked
Health,
about. Yeah,
health.
and I got it was such a strange time because I got so like what I'll give myself grace for and credit for
Yeah.
is that when it was all said and done, I never changed my truth about it all, and I
Mhm,
never changed that I stood by wellness as
mhm.
like I might have had 2 weeks of like we didn't know what this was, like
Right.
right at the beginning
Yeah,
of it. But then immediately I was back to no, 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 we're not focusing on the
yeah,
right things.
yeah,
And so that's why we had the conversation that we had, and I
yeah,
started doing the Voices for Wellness stuff
yeah,
because it didn't make sense to me. And it was like, no, all the people that speak about wellness, y'all all need to shut up right now
yeah.
and stop talking. I'm like, wait a minute. Well, when did we become the bad guys?
Right.
Like, this just doesn't make any sense.
Healthcare is self-care.
Yeah.
Depending on someone else to take care of you, it's never
Never,
gonna happen.
never. It's not sustainable.
Nobody has your best interest as much as you do.
Nobody knows you
Right,
as well as you do.
right.
That's one of my things that I talk about all the time as it relates to my healthcare and wellness or anything like. If I can't go into a doctor's office and they don't listen to everything I have to say about my body, the person that's been with this body for 44 years, no one knows it as good as I do, and they never listen. That's not everything that I ever run into is that a doctor doesn't listen to my body to me talk to them about my body. I might get with a really special doctor, I might get like 15 minutes to share some stories, but
Yeah,
I've got an entire lifetime of like
yeah,
challenges with my health and knowing my body and knowing what I do. My first appointment with LaDonna was basically just an hour of me telling her
wow,
everything going on with my body
yeah,
so that at the end of the day she can say, okay, well, here's some ideas.
right,
Now take what you want to take from that. And I think that there was something so empowering about that, that at first I was like, I don't know about this autoimmune protocol diet. And then afterwards, because she hadn't forced it on me, she just said, okay, she'd give me some advice. She'd let me talk it all out. And then she said, here's like a prescription, give it a try. And it's not a prescription, but it is, you
yeah,
know. And I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give that a try. And it was one of a lot of self care things that I did back then, but
right.
I was looking for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was at the end of my rope.
But something put you on that path to be looking, and sometimes that's what
Yeah.
it takes. Because
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, myself included, we don't pay attention to these parts, these aspects of our health until something goes wrong, and your attention is gotten, and you're forced to do something about it. But maybe that's just the way it's supposed to happen.
I can't imagine at this point with all of the different things that I've been through in life and all of the experiences that I've had and how I have, really adamantly set out to like figure it out. I'm not going to just take someone else's advice. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want an objective opinion about things. And I think that that's my biggest concern with the medical industry right now is that I need to be able to go to people
Yeah.
and get an objective opinion, but that doesn't mean that it's like I'm going to a priest, and if I don't follow your rules, then I'm gonna go to hell, and basically that's what I feel like often happens. If we can't communicate, then we're doing it by ourselves, and I've been doing, wellness and my own health by myself for 20 years. I mean, because there was no one else. Now we're getting more options available to us, having more doctors, cash pay doctors that are willing to like sit and listen, and like more of that's happening in Corpus
Yeah.
Christi than ever before. It's been a long time, but I'll tell you that like including so when I went down that path at the end of 22, I got a counselor,
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
I went to yoga, I
Yeah.
went to recovery.
Right.
I started my no, I had already been doing qigong, but I like just dug into that a little bit more, and just everything had to flip for me.
So, but you addressed all of the parts, and that's again, what they've been doing on the other side of the planet. Chinese and Ayurvedic um, uh, practices. They
Mhm.
address like the whole person as a system of parts. So
Mhm.
you just don't have one person to address all of those parts. You have different people to address the different areas. That's why integrative healthcare is what's trending right now.
Yeah.
Is how identifying all the people that address all of those parts, so that we can refer people, because I can't, if someone is having a weight issue, I mean, I have a basic idea, but I'm absolutely going to send that person to a nutritionist or a personal trainer or yoga classes or someone else that can do that because that's not what I do. So
Yeah.
there's so many things that we can do to become a whole healthy person.
Integrative medicine is a really important subject that I've been paying attention to. I listen to Dr. Hyman's podcast fairly regularly, especially when it's topics that I'm specifically
He's
interested in.
awesome.
He was talking about the brain the other day because he had some really big issues with
Sure.
brain stuff.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. Okay, speaking of that, I want you to tell us, you have a book called Lift. I
Yeah.
want you to tell us about that, and I want you to tell everyone where they can find you as well.
So I have a book that I've been working on for a long time. It took longer than going back to college, midlife, and finishing graduate school. It took longer than that.
But it happened.
It happened, and it's wonderful that it happened. The main reason I wrote the book, and I knew I wanted to do this at some. It started off as like a little brochure, but there was just more. There was just so much information. It just had to be a book. I know when people are coming to see me for a first time and they're not feeling good, they're not paying attention, and I've had people admit to that.
Mhm.
That there's so much information that I wanted to have. I wanted them to have everything in a book,
Uh-huh.
so they had it to refer to. So everything that I talk about in therapy is in
Yeah.
that book,
Yeah.
so they can refer to that. That's that. It was always for clients, and then it turned into for people who were maybe thinking about therapy because I had so many people come to me and said that they had my number for weeks, months before
Mhm.
they called.
Mm.
So then I thought this book is also to let people know that it's not so bad,
Yeah.
that there are things that you can do. And actually, it's a lot of things that, you probably enjoy doing. I
Right.
mean, well being is thinking well, feeling well, and doing well. And a lot of that has to do with things that you enjoy.
Right.
So a lot of this, it's not that bad, and I just wanted everyone to know that. And I wanted to make it super simple,
Yeah.
because I know when people aren't feeling good, it's hard to focus and read. So it's spaced out. It's over 100 pages, but it's not
It's not a
a
big
lot.
book.
It's not a
Yeah.
big book. It's an easy read.
I pulled it was actually on my coffee table today. I was moving some stuff around and I had read half of it, and for whatever reason I don't know why, but I stopped reading it. And so I was thinking to myself, "Oh, I need to pick it back up again and probably start it back over again and read
You'll
through it
like
again."
the second half because it's all the mind, body, spirit
Perfect.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
then it'll be on my list of like put it at the
the
top
the
now and get it
first
read.
the first half is it's about thoughts, emotions, actions, and these are the components of cognitive behavioral therapy. And I use a basic approach where I teach people a simple formula to help them become emotionally intelligent, which
Yes.
is understanding why they feel the way they do. And it's usually coming from their thoughts or their actions, so that they can understand that they can change that. They have
Yep.
choices. But when you understand that about yourself, then you also understand everyone else because we're all the same,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We all have thoughts that affect
Mhm.
our emotions, that affect our actions, which affect our thoughts and affect
Mhm.
our. So we're all the same,
Yeah.
which I think would be a really good place for us to start before we start to talk about all these other things that are
That make
dividing
us different.
people, right?
Right.
Make us different.
Yeah.
Let's focus on how we're the
Mhm.
same,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of that is our health.
Yeah. Yeah, and body awareness. Body is a communication tool. Body is a tool.
Yeah.
If we can think about like what is it that our body is telling us, it's telling each person that same thing, that everyone has a reaction, a trigger. I hate that word, but emotional reaction. Everyone has
A
that.
cause and effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so we're all doing that. Okay, so where do we get that book from, and how do I get in touch with you if I want to find you?
So timtatelpc.com.
Okay.
Easy.
Mhm.
Tim Tate LPC. L is in license, P is in professional, C is in counselor.
There you go.
It's my website. My book is on there. My information is on there. You can send me an email through there. So I would say my website.
Tim and I have been friends for a long time.
Long time.
We went to college together even, and so
Oh my
we
God,
studied together.
Mr. David. Mr.
Mhm.
David.
Our
That was my
algebra teacher.
third attempt at algebra.
Mhm.
And I was told to take Mr. David's class
Yep,
because he
me
was
too.
amazing.
Yep.
But I don't know if you remember what his first words when he said,
I
when he
feel like
walked,
you've told me this before, but I don't
he
remember.
came out into the classroom and I thought, I've got, this class is going to make or break me. I've got to pass this class. He said the first words out of his mouth was 8 is a mystical number. And I
And you're
thought,
like,
I am
yes,
going to pass
I
this
can do it. I
class
can do it.
for
You,
some
me, and
reason.
Kim
And
took that
Kim,
class together. We studied at the like IHOP or whatever a
best
lot.
advice, another other best advice, someone said, when you're taking the hard classes, sit in the front
Uh-huh.
and
Yes.
make friends with the
Uh-huh.
people who are in
On
the
the
front
front.
because they are in it to win it. And you want
Yes.
to be friends with those
Yes.
people. And that's what we did.
And then we stuck together
Yep.
and now here we
Yep.
are. And I'm looking
And I
forward
got an
to
A in algebra.
I did too. I did
Yep.
too. I'm looking forward to some of the other things I think we're going to be able to do together now,
Right
like
on.
that we've, reassociated again and have come back
Absolutely.
together again. Okay, so now it's time to do the random question thing that we do every week.
Okay.
And so I drew a question out of the table topics. And are you ready for this?
Well, what makes some table topics?
They're in a table topic box
Oh,
called
okay.
table topics.
Okay.
I actually have quite a few of them because at one point they sent us some to like give away to
Yeah.
people, and so I have a
I
stack
was
of
just
them.
buying time putting
Yeah.
off this question.
Yeah. Who's the funniest person on TV?
The funniest person on TV. Oh my gosh. That is a random question.
Totally random.
On TV right now, I'm
Or
trying to
maybe not even
think.
TV. Like who's the most funniest person? Like if you were going to turn on somebody funny, a funny
Oh
show,
god.
a funny
Well, that's changed. I mean, I'm always going to go to, there was that time in my life, which of course laughter is the best medicine.
uh-huh.
Um, I always, if I was in a mood or down, Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Pet Detective,
Oh
When Nature
yeah.
Calls,
Uh-huh.
that movie every
Made you
time
laugh.
just hysterical. Yeah,
Love
it
it.
just changed me. But since then, I'm, and back in the day, like I'm even thinking his show in Living Color, those kind of, it's just
Yeah.
not, I guess comedians these days, I don't even know who don't want to mention because everyone's so controversial, but
Everyone's
yeah,
so controversial. I agree with that. And I think comedians in general are controversial. So,
yeah,
I love Ted Lasso, but that's like
yeah.
that's not a real person. And I love Mrs. Maisel. But the funniest person to me right now is Dave Chappelle. And I
Dave
don't give a
Chappelle.
crap whether anybody
Well,
likes him
yeah,
or not.
that's who I
Like,
was gonna say.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
kind of
care.
controversial.
If you're on this, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't like Dave Chappelle, you're
Right
probably
on.
listening to the wrong podcast. I think he is so intelligent and so funny and so well spoken. And anytime he's out there speaking, I listen.
So when the pandemic hit, I discovered Schitt's Creek,
Yes,
and
that's a
of
funny
course
show.
David
Uh-huh. Yes.
was just,
See, that's a good one.
yeah, that watching that show definitely helped me get through that pandemic. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was a funny show.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us again at the dinner table. Thank you, Tim, for coming and having dinner with me and
Thank you
cooking
for
dinner
having
with
me. It was
me.
wonderful.
So much fun.
So good.
I love you guys all so much. I would appreciate it if you guys would share this podcast with your friends. If you want to check it out on YouTube, we're over there. While you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to my channel. That helps me out over there as well. And then also, if you go over to dinnertabletalks.com, right at the top of the show, it says support the podcast. Push that button and just throw $1 a month at me, because if 50 people throw $1 a month at me, that just keeps me putting on a podcast in a little bit easier manner as I'm moving forward. I appreciate you guys all so much for joining me here every week. And